There's an interesting symmetry to the ending of The Batman. Not only because its final scene sees the Caped Crusader watching Selina Kyle from his rearview mirror as they take different paths, but because its final image, a close-up of Batman's face as he rides away, is a counterpoint to one of the character's other famous movie endings, which also happens to feature him on a motorcycle. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, in which he rides away from the camera in a wide shot. But what do these two endings represent? In The Dark Knight, Batman has just decided to take the blame for Harvey Dent's actions.
I killed those people. That's what I could be.
Transforming himself into a symbol of hate and fear for the people of Gotham. The final scene is a rousing crescendo, and the image of him driving toward a spotlight is fitting, since it turns him into a silhouette, cape flapping, obscuring his details in darkness, even though, aesthetically, this is a new idea for the movie that doesn't have much to do with the rest of the film. In The Batman, however, the final image of the character riding at dawn, his face illuminated both by streetlights and by sunlight, is the perfect visual culmination for a character built on the idea of darkness, and not just because of his nickname. Matt Reeves' The Batman is a film defined by light and dark, an aesthetic tug-of-war that unfolds in the lighting design throughout the entire film, describing Batman's story arc with nearly 3 hours of incredibly consistent visual language. While making The Batman, director Matt Reeves, cinematographer Greg Fraser, and colorist David Cole were very careful and very intentional about the atmosphere they created, and the way they used light and darkness to tell their story. Batman starts out as a vengeful vigilante fighting in the shadows, and by the end he stands tall as a beacon of hope. Along the way, he wrestles between light and dark in almost every scene, inching closer and closer towards the light, only to have it snatched away from him and be thrust back in the shadows, until he finally emerges victorious.
They think I'm hiding in the shadows.
The Batman is literally introduced as darkness itself. His entire introductory sequence is a collection of shots of dark, empty spaces waiting for him to emerge. When Robert Pattinson finally strides out of the shadows, it's like a promise fulfilled. Here is the hellish creature from the void this sequence has taught us to fear. But this introduction, badass as it may be, comes after a similar moment in which Paul Dano's murderous Riddler emerges from the shadows to murder Gotham City's mayor, like a slasher movie villain in waiting. This sets the stage for a story that draws constant visual comparisons between Batman and the Riddler, from the way they first appear to the way they watch people from afar. Like any good member of Batman's rogues gallery, the Riddler is his equal and opposite, because Batman is still a long way from actually finding this out.
What have you done?
All these visual comparisons are initially meant for us, the audience, as we track the way Batman moves and operates.
I'm vengeance.
Part of this means understanding his place in Gotham, a city that seems consumed by darkness. When we first meet Batman, the frame is almost entirely dark, but there are glimmers of light hitting him from a distance, enough that you can just about discern his shape, not unlike the way the movie frames the Riddler at first. The story's tension between light and darkness has already begun well before its hero and villain have met, and at the beginning, the darkness is winning. Visually, this can be a difficult balancing act to pull off, but Reeves, Fraser, and Cole are experts at their craft. Even when the screen is filled with black, between the dark production design, Batman's outfit, and the black jackets of the GCPD, this frame is still littered with pools of light in the background and foreground, creating a living, breathing, textured environment. Usually, high contrast between light and dark is not shied away from in a movie, because the difference between what's lit and what isn't helps accentuate the drama, and it draws your attention to specific details on scales even as small as highlighting only parts of people's faces. However, because so many of the Batman scenes feature both flashes of bright lights and spaces that are almost entirely black, the filmmakers actually went against these instincts and turned the contrast down a notch.
And now if we chose to have air in the blacks, like we do in a lot of this movie, to help with the contrast so we can see deeply into the blacks, because if you have something very bright in shot, you iris down, you can't see. So contrast was a very big thing for us.
When filmmakers want to hide characters and information in the darkness or reveal them through light, high contrast is usually the way to go. But in The Batman, the intent in many scenes was to keep as much detail as possible visible in the frame. The result is the brightest and darkest parts of the frame being visible at once, because in The Batman, what's illuminated and what's in the shadows are both vital parts of the story.
There.
One of the major selling points of The Batman, at least for most Bat fans, is that it's the first Batman movie that lets him really be a detective. Unless, of course, you count whatever this was. Scenes of Batman uncovering clues may not be heavy on the action, and the clues themselves are kind of silly.
Thumb drive.
In an almost 1960s Batman kind of way.
It happened at sea. See? C for Catwoman.
But they allow the film to slow down and have Batman himself control the light, whether to literally illuminate spaces with his flashlight or to shine a metaphorical light on clues.
You make it sound like he had it coming. He was a cop. Cross the line.
All the while, the idea that Batman and the Riddler might be scarily similar always looms like a dark cloud. While the plot initially allows Batman to shift focus from low-level street gangs to corrupt politicians, what he doesn't realize
We're such a good team.
is that he's being manipulated by the Riddler, who wants him to bring a major informant out into the light just so the Riddler can kill him. Along the way, while Batman is in control of his own flashlight, he's still left in shadow. Even when his appearance starts to be signaled by the arrival of light, he still operates from the darkness. However, while Batman himself struggles to escape the shadows, a secondary plot unfolds that also plays with light and dark. The scene in which he takes on a bunch of Carmine Falcone's goons while lit only by muzzle flashes is an awesome spectacle, but it also occurs when he's trying to save Selina Kyle from being consumed by vengeance. It's when the film's battle between light and darkness is at its most intense. Selina is on a mission to murder Carmine Falcone, and as much as Batman is on a mission to capture him, he's also determined to stop her, to save her soul and to prevent her from falling into darkness. In microcosm, it's the kind of battle Batman has been having with himself throughout the film, all played out visually with the lighting design.
You're leaving.
Jesus.
What follows the culmination of Selina's story should, in theory, be a simple conclusion, with Batman saving the day and delivering justice once and for all by bringing Falcone out into the light. But it's here when Batman finally realizes that he's just a pawn in Riddler's plan, and that working towards coming out into the light and bringing criminals with him is meaningless if his vengeful past is still running amok, and inspiring the Riddler and his deadly followers. Once again, the frame becomes consumed by darkness as Batman tries to fight his way out. As Gotham is flooded, Batman leads people to safety with the help of a flare, and for the first time in the film, the light he controls illuminates him too. And while it feels like there are a few missing plot beats along the way, for instance, Batman doesn't come to the realization that he needs to inspire people until after this rescue scene, the story still makes emotional sense because we are able to follow it aesthetically. Regardless of whether or not he's aware of it, we see the change. When Selina returns the favor and saves Batman, she seems to bring flashes of light back with her. Where Batman, a shadowy figure, once terrified even the people he was trying to save,
Please don't hurt me.
he now reaches out and guides them to safety. At the end of The Dark Knight, Batman is ironically driving toward the light, leaving shadows behind him, which is more a statement on how good we, the audience, know him to be, and a thread that, if pulled on, hints at a less than warm and fuzzy moral compass Nolan would more plainly reveal in The Dark Knight Rises. But before I digress, the Batman ends with a close-up of Batman's face as he rides off into the distance after he decides what kind of hero he wants to be. He may still wear a mask, but his MO is no longer about hiding. It's about being seen and inspiring people to follow in his footsteps. It's about leading them out of the darkness.